And straighten your microphone.
If you need a break,
I might just take this.
yeah. If there's a particular speech you don't want to.
There's someone's having a difficulty in the back. Sorry?
Oh, Kate's car. What? The boys got it. Okay, Peter.
Okay, so hi, I'm Peter Gabel, and I'm going to read a letter to the editor that Michael wrote. November 26, 1971, from Bordeaux, France, where Michael was a medical student. And you'll hear how much has changed since Churchville High School. 6 years earlier, I guess, or maybe 7 or 8 years earlier, but we all changed during that time, tremendously, exactly the way Michael changed. Many of our generation, Michael and I, are the same age, we're the same age. So here's his letter to the editor, November 26, 1971, in Bordeaux, France, where he was a medical student. Dear editor, I have just received some newspaper clippings from my mother concerning the physician situation in Riga. As a medical student, a Riga resident, which must be right outside of Bordeaux, a Riga resident, and most basic, a human being, I feel compelled to comment. The situation in Riga is in no way an exception in the US today. So Riga must be in the US, and he's reading about a town in the US. Indeed, it is more the rule. Dr. Mahanger's decision seems to be a carefully planned reaction to a question for which there are few good answers under the present conditions. His forecast for the future predicts the role of the doctor's assistant, and this is one of two answers to the doctor shortage. The other, an increased number of doctors, seems to be highly unlikely. I favor the second, though, because I believe in the concept of the family doctor. I believe that the certain security and trust that he or she can evoke in a community to be as important as the actual medical care dispensed. Indeed, I believe a return to the family doctor type of care can spread a new sense of community to our sprawling suburbs. Why does this situation exist in the richest country in the world? What is the source of our frustration with medical care? I am studying in Europe, not by choice. I left for France, barely knowledgeable of the French language, because though I believe I have shown myself capable, there is not room in American medical schools. There are students much more qualified than I giving up their dreams because last year there were over 100,000 applications filed for 10,000 places. The answer, I believe, is embodied in a madness, one that involves greed and politics. I hate to venture into the political aspects, but it is often the most important and most overlooked. I risk the chance of alienating people because one is often very defensive when his political feelings are challenged. And Riga and the Rochester metropolitan area are, to say the least, supportive of our more conservative administrations. The link must be made, however, if we are to change the course of medical care in the U.S. Richard Nixon's policy toward health care began at a low point and worked downward. This intimate relationship with the AMA and its greedy administrators became obvious when they forced him to withdraw the nomination of Dr. Knowles as head of HEW, Department of Health, Education and Welfare. He has continually fought progressive legislation in the field of social medicine, unless it has involved big money for his friends in the private sector of business. To cover his flank politically, he has seized flashy issues such as the fight against cancer, which carry a large emotive impact but in essence are very narrow in scope. But what I consider the most heinous, indeed bordering on the immoral, is that in the budgeting last year, he called the HEW funding inflationary but staked his political life on securing billions for ABM, the Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty. Why this madness? What kind of value system operates when health and education are called inflationary and bombs and missiles necessary? When you are frustrated for lack of medical care, are you thankful that we have the power to destroy the world several times over? This past week, Congress passed the $70.9 billion defense budget, lower than what Nixon, Laird, etc. requested, with $500 million thrown in extra for Israeli jet planes. Imagine for a moment, try hard because it is important. Imagine if the United States were to say, we are through with wars and defense budgets, bombs, tanks, and warplanes. We're going to take this $70 billion and put it into health and education and welfare. We're going to spend it for clothes, for medicine, for food, for books, and give it with love. We're going to stop supporting armies in the other countries of the world and help them to feed and care for their people instead of march them into line. If you're afraid of communism, do you think they could hate a country so good as that? Can you imagine reaction to our taking all the money we are spending to bomb the Ho Chi Minh Trail and spending it for food and housing of the refugees we have made to be anything but admiring and love of us? We can win over the world with goodness. We must believe that or we shall blow ourselves to bits. It must start in all the little towns like Riga and work its way to Washington and from there to the world. Imagine the world taking the billions spent to destroy life and beginning to work to save life. If it doesn't grab you somewhere deep down, then perhaps the irrational rationalizations of our technicalized society have succeeded in destroying what we had left of our emotions. Michael J. McAvoy, 9 Rue de Croix-Coney, Bordeaux, France.